Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. This is Bob Pompeani, and thank you for joining us here in the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We take your calls 7 nights a week or tweets. Hit me up at KD Pomp. I'll try to read some of those as we go along here tonight. The number to call is 412-575-2600. And today, a couple of more interesting football games after what we saw yesterday, that wild affair at Ford Field where, man, I'll tell you, Jaden Daniels for a rookie, you talk about take his pulse, it's probably one of the lowest rates you're going to find. The guy just is terrific under pressure. He's poised. Washington took him in the draft second after Caleb Williams goes to Chicago. And we've talked a lot about quarterbacks that are chosen second after the first one, and sometimes the second one looked better than the first one, and you got to really wait and see how this is all going to turn out. But for now, Jaden Daniels looks like he is the slam dunk rookie of the year in the NFC for sure. I mean, the guy was just so good yesterday at a tough place to play against a team that admittedly had a lot of guys out with injury, and I don't think people should overlook that. Very important to cite that. Detroit battled a lot of injuries all season long, and yet here they were in that game, and Washington took it to them, made some critical plays at critical times. And today we saw a lot of that as well. Saquon Barkley, who the Giants discarded, he goes to Philadelphia and puts on a show. He did all season long with over 2,000 rushing yards. This without playing in the final game of the year that could have put him into the record books ahead of Eric Dickerson, but they chose to save him for the playoffs. And, man, he came out with a lot of energy today. 205 yards, a 62-yard touchdown, a 78-yard touchdown, and the Rams had a chance at the end, but a sack nailed their fate. So the Rams go home. The Eagles go to the championship game against Washington. That's a division matchup, so they know each other very well. And in the AFC, what a game it was between Buffalo and Baltimore. I thought Baltimore actually beat themselves here today on a lot of levels. Give Buffalo credit today, make mistakes at all. Josh Allen and his run game, very effective today. Their defense was good when it had to be, but still, I thought Baltimore had the better of the play throughout the course of this game, but they made too many mistakes. Lamar Jackson threw an early game interception and then a fumble, which was caused by Damar Hamlin, picked up by Von Miller, led to a touchdown. And then later, a guy you never expect to fumble, fumbles and then dropped a two-point conversion, and that would be Mark Andrews. And if that doesn't happen, we have overtime, ladies and gentlemen. And in overtime, I'm not sure what you think, but I think that could have been a very interesting, or I was actually hoping to see overtime just to see what would have happened. And I know, save all your texts and tweets about it's the Ravens, you should hate them. I'm just looking at it objectively. I thought Jackson actually played a pretty good game. I know those mistakes are there, but he fought back, had his team in position to tie the game and potentially win it, but he never got that chance because of the drops by Andrews. So that sets up Washington, Philly. You're going to see Buffalo and Kansas City right on KDKA. That's a 6:30 start next Sunday night. So that will be fun to watch that game. And Kansas City, which has been to 7 consecutive AFC Conference Championship games. That's every year Pat Mahomes has been a starter. He's gotten to the championship game. And you know what they've done in terms of winning a lot of those games and getting to Super Bowls. They've won 2 in a row, looking to make it 3 in a row. I will say this. I thought there were some really questionable referee calls in that game yesterday. Roughing the passer, the one that he never even got hit. It was 2 Texans going head-to-head. Anderson was one of them. They called roughing. And listen, I'm all for replay assist. We talk about it. I know that you can't assist on every single play. But in playoff games, they should really enhance, what replay assist is allowed to do, because that's one of those you can look at and say, yeah, no, you guys blew it. Not take that penalty off the books. It wasn't a penalty, because it wasn't a penalty. Mahomes has got the benefit of the doubt on a lot of those things, but give them a lot of credit as well. They've overcome whatever they had to overcome. Never scored more than 30 points in a game this year. Every other team that fell into that category had awful records. Not Kansas City. They had a 15-2 record, and they are now heading to an AFC Championship game. But we're going to talk about the Steeler needs. I'd like to hear from you at 412-575-2600 because they have a lot of them. We're talking quarterbacks. We're talking wide receivers. We're talking who, if anyone, should be considered trade bait to acquire picks, potentially to trade up and be in a position to take a quarterback. If it's not this year, then certainly in 2026, which appears to be a deeper quarterback draft. There was a report by Adam Schefter that the Bears had called the Steelers and asked for permission to talk to Mike Tomlin and engage in a trade for Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers shut that down very quickly. So I think once you saw him sign the 3-year extension last year, that none of that was going to happen. But here they are. They need to make some adjustments, some change. And so far we haven't seen much, but it's early in the process. What will those changes look like? I'd like to hear from you on that. We'll also talk about the Pirates after Pirate Fest and what they've done in this offseason. I expected more. You have a pitching staff with Skeens and Jones on it, possibly Bubba Chandler, talented arms. Man, you got to surround it with some talent. And as I said before, this is almost like a situation where you have a rookie quarterback like Washington has in Jaden Daniels. He comes at a very small price, so you can go out and buy around him, spend some money. Same thing from Paul Skeens. He's making less than $1 million a year, I think. This is your time to go out and spend some money to put around him assets that can make your team better. And so far they haven't done that. Yeah, they've brought in some players, but are they right players? Are they the ones who can do that? I think it's time that they did it. And so far we haven't seen that. Will they? We'll find out in the next month or two. Ben Cherington said free agency sometimes takes a while, and he expects some things to be done. We'll see what those things are. Want to hear from you at 412-575-2600. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Join us tonight at 11:35 on KDKA for the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. On my panel tonight will be Jeff Hathorn, Will Graves, and Ray Fittipaldo. So we have a lot going on tonight. That's after the late news on KDKA. I want your calls. Call now, text now, tweet now, whatever you want to do, and I'll read it as we continue on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA Plus, and on some nights, 93.7 The Fan. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from Kyle Brandt, who says rookie quarterbacks to start a title game and where their team's scoring defense is ranked. This is very interesting, and it tells you just how good Jaden Daniels has been. You know, when Brock Purdy got there, his defense was first. Mark Sanchez, his defense was third. Joe Flacco, third overall. When Roethlisberger did it, first-time rookie, first overall defensive team. Sean King, you may not remember him, but he did it. But again, largely because of his defense. How about Jaden Daniels? Didn't rely on his defense. They were 18th overall, and Daniels finds himself in this situation. Just a remarkable season for him and how poised he was in so many different throws he made last night. And the big thing, he didn't make mistakes at all in either of his 2 first playoff games. 412-575-2600. Got a tweet here from Steelers, Pens, Pirates fan who says, what position, Bob, should the Steelers focus on most in this offseason, with the front office focusing on the trenches these past 2 drafts by drafting OT in the round 1? What would it be? Well, I think wide receiver, here we go again with this position, but they haven't taken a wide receiver in the first round. I think George Pickens is going to be traded. I just have this vibe that he's not going to be here. He has 1 year left on a contract. He is not a number 1 pick, which means he doesn't have a 5th-year option, which means next year is his last year. And if that should happen, they can play it out, certainly. Or they can make a trade now, or they can sign him. That's also, if they believe his talent, and his talent is terrific. There's no question about it. It's about how he applies that talent is the concern. So I get the feeling there's this vibe that he may be traded. And if he is, they're going to definitely have to draft that. They may sign someone in free agency. They have some cap money available to them, and they can also create more space by doing away with some guys who have a year left on their contract. And some of them have, March incentive deals that have to be met. And if you don't, you can save some money there. So there's a way to create even more cap space. And I would expect wide receiver to be the heaviest looked at position, although cornerback is still very big to me. Defensive line isn't getting any younger. There are a lot of needs for this team. There's no question. All right, let's get to the lines at 412-575-2600. Mike in Bethel Park. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, Bob. Just your thought on being New England and Giants are obviously rebuilding. Do you think the Steelers would ever trade like their first and second round picks for 2 years consecutive to them, projecting that they may stay bad and try to land the top 5 pick 2 years from now to get a top quarterback that isn't out yet but will be in 2 years?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ifs there in those kinds of scenarios, but I get what you're saying. First off, you look at the teams that are going to be drafting in the top 5 this year, and a lot of them have needs that go beyond quarterback. For example, New England has, I think, the 3rd overall pick. Jeff Hathorn brings this up tonight on our #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. What if New England and Mike Vrabel, who wants a good defense and they need some help there defensively, and they have Drake May, I assume he's going to be their guy. You never know. A new coach may have a different feeling. But what if he says, I want T.J. Watt, and I'd be willing to make an offer for you for T.J. Watt. In addition, you're going to have to give me next year's #1 pick, but I can give you the 3rd overall pick. Again, this is hypothetical. Would they do it? I don't know if this is the right year to do it, to be honest. I'm not so sure about Shedeur Sanders. I'm not so sure about Cam Ward or anyone else. I think next year, based on things that I read and watching videotape, seems to be a larger pool of talent there. Maybe more talent, maybe better talent. I'm not sure. This is a high-stakes game these NFL teams play in the search of the next quarterback. And there are some teams you could be searching for a decade to find it. The Steelers have started this, succession. There wasn't really a plan, because if there had been a plan, you might have taken Lamar Jackson instead of Terrell Edmonds. You might have taken Jalen Hurts instead of Chase Claypool. But you didn't have a plan unless Mason Rudolph was the plan. And if that was the plan, it didn't look like they wanted to go to that plan. So you have to, you chase it. You're chasing. And if you're chasing a lot, that means you're settling for something less than you want. So it's something that certainly has to be acknowledged at some point. I think the short term, Justin Fields gets the job. I think he'll sign a 2-year, 3-year, whatever. It'll be something they can handle and hope that he can take his game to another level. I think he can. I love his talent. I think he's a good person. I think he works hard. And I want to see him take it to that next level. We'll see. 412-575-2600. Let's go to Steve on line number 2. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Bob?
Doing good. Thank you.
Good. Well, what I'm calling about is probably not one of your normal questions, but I'm calling about
we get a lot of them
ownership. Yeah, I'm sure you do. The ownership of the Steelers. I understand that Mr. Rooney owns the Steelers, but he has minority owners, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do the minority owners have any input into the?
Well, they can. He has the final vote because he has 51 or more % of the ownership. I'm not sure how that all structure works, but he's the man who decides in the very end. But yeah, those guys have say, and if, I'm sure they are open to conversations about what goes on because you are an owner. I have this tweet here from BRS15 who says Bills would have had 2 timeouts and 1:40 left to avoid overtime, which is a good point. If and I brought that up as Andrews, if he makes it, it appears overtime is imminent. Although Josh Allen still had 2 timeouts and 1:40 left, so there's no guarantee that they couldn't go down and score themselves. But the point is, they had a chance to put that game into overtime. So here's another thing that bothers me about coaches sometimes. And this is a math game. They should have this stuff all worked out. But when you start chasing points, it leads you into a bad situation. Like in this game, it was 21-13, right? So they score a touchdown to make it 21-19. At that point, they go for 2 and miss. If they kick the extra point, because it's still early enough where a field goal, you don't need to go for 2 at that point. Some believe you have to. But when you miss, you start chasing. So 21-13 becomes 21-19. They missed a 2-point conversion. It stays 21-19. Could have been 21-20. If Buffalo gets those next 2 field goals, which they did, it would have been 27-20 instead of 27-19. So when they do score at the end, they kick an extra point and it's 27-27. But they're forced to go to 2 because they went to 2 early. I'd like to know how some of you feel about that at 412-575-2600. Let's go out to Tommy in Cannonsburg. Hello, Tommy. How are you?
Hey, Bob. Doing good.
Good.
Used to see you and Edmund down in the bottom of the basement of the old hallways. Anyway, hey, nonetheless, no one's talking about this. What do you think about us grabbing Johnny Gruden?
As a head coach, no. I mean, no. That's out of the blue. I didn't expect that comment. Let's go to Kirk in Manor. Hey, Kirk, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Bob, how are you tonight?
I'm good.
I have a quick question
Sure.
for you. Why won't they at least entertain offers for Mike Tomlin? Or do we as Steeler fans have to put up with his coaching?
Well, you know what? I think, Kirk, that for all we know, they may have, at least talked about it. I don't know. All I know is a report from Schefter indicated that the Chicago Bears had asked and eventually were told no. I don't know what level it went to. I think everything's worth talking about. I think if you are a GM or someone in charge, it doesn't hurt to have conversations. It doesn't. Whether that's trading a star player, whether that's acquiring picks, whatever the case may be. You should talk about all scenarios and come to a conclusion. So they have concluded they're not doing it. And again, I think the clue was last year when he got a 3-year extension, they weren't going to move on. Now, what I do expect is change. He spoke about that at the press conference the other day, and so far we haven't seen much. But it is early in the process. I would expect some moves here coming up in the next week or two, and I also would expect them to be heavily involved in free agency this year. And when I say heavily, I mean spending some money, some legitimate money on people who are established to help them in areas of need. We'll see how it goes. 412-575-2600 is the number. We're going to take a break. Come back with more. We do this show 7 nights a week. We're right here on KDKA+. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Erica Stanish is standing by with what's ahead tonight on KDKA News at 11 o'clock. Erica.
Yeah, hey Bob, here's what we're working on. We're in KDKA First Alert weather mode right now with some extreme cold heading our way. KDKA's First Alert meteorologist Kristen Emery is timing it all out for us, and Ricky Sayer is speaking with local health leaders on what we should all be keeping an eye on out in the cold. We're going to have all that and so much more coming up tonight at 11. We'll see you then, Bob.
All right, Erica, thanks very much. TC on line 3 in Butler. What's up, TC?
Hello, how you doing?
Good. What's going on?
Oh, I just called about Tomlin in Chicago asking to trade him, a trade for him. I think they should have considered it.
I don't know if they did or didn't, but the answer ultimately was no. So, I think people come to the conclusion they didn't even discuss. I don't know if they discussed it or not. They might have. Who knows? Anyway, I got this from Lakers Bet, who says, Pomp, what's your take on Victor Wembanyama and his Pitt Hoops destined to miss the tournament? No, they're not destined to miss the tournament, Lakers.bet, but they got to start finishing games. So they had a home game against a good team yesterday in Clemson, fought all the way back from 14-point deficit and got to overtime. But, I didn't think their offense was very creative in overtime. But, the problem was starting slowly and falling behind. As far as Wembanyama, the dude is unbelievable. 21 years old. Already he's going to set a record for most blocks in a career, I'm sure. Can shoot from 3, can dribble like a guard. I thought Zach Edey played him pretty well the other day. Another big guy, 7'4", who you saw last year at Purdue. Anyway, very talented guys. I love watching athletic guys play basketball, no doubt. All right, that's going to do it for us. Join us tonight, 11:35, #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. It's on after the news. We'll see you then, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 10:35. Have a good week.